Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jackie Ma. And today I'm really excited to bring a beloved sister who is a multidisciplinary artist and healer and just a creative songstress and beautiful painter, my dear friend, Treadway. So I'm going to bring her on and we're just going to weave today and share about the magic of the path and embracing and embodying the divine feminine and walking in life. So, Cece, welcome.
Thank you so much. That sounds really great. Let's do that. Everything you just said.
Yeah, let's just do that. I'm so glad to have you on.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, I enjoy our conversations. And so it's really beautiful. Sometimes we have a lot of wisdom that comes through, and I like to be able to record that so other people can benefit from that wisdom.
Let's see if we can
I
get there.
know we can conjure that up today. So I want to begin a little bit about, since we're talking about legacy, just a little bit about your background as far as the healing arts and the music, like kind of how did your wellspring of this inheritance of creative genius like start to pop for you when you were a kid? And then, I don't know, just bring us into the weave.
Okay. Well, I had parents who just let me be me when I in that way. You know,
Awesome.
that's kind of it. Like I didn't
That's a
go through.
rarity.
It is a rarity, actually. And it's a combination of like my mom being kind of fascinated with the spiritual energy that I came with and my brother came with as well. And it opened her up a lot. It opened her spiritual curiosity. So she says she had like, her awakening when she was pregnant.
Mm.
And then I think my dad was just kind of like, into his own thing and
Yeah.
just not interfering. He's just kind of reading in the study.
Yeah.
While I was talking to fairies and building universes and praying with Mother Mary at night, as a little kid, he was just, and I was just doing my thing and he was doing his thing.
Yeah.
And that's actually a lot of how our family was, very Gen X-y, right? Like just let the kids out the back door.
Yeah.
And that's it. They'd let us out the back door and I would just be playing in the trees all day in my little universes and worlds and come back inside for dinner. And I didn't really discuss what happened in the
Yeah.
forest each day. I didn't even consider doing so, but it was informing me. And then that thread just kind of kept going.
Mm.
And my mom, because she became interested in spirituality when we were younger, like, ages 0 to 5, right? Like we would go to the Edgar Cayce Center, the ARE Center in Virginia, which is a very deeply spiritual place. And in the 70s, like it was really carrying a lot of pure, like Essene energy, that Christ energy. It's really strong in there. So the sense of spirituality just in my life was there and it was no big deal. I always thought I would become a healer. It was told to me I would become a healer at that time. And I think there was just so much space for it. And my spiritual connection just kept growing stronger and stronger through life's initiations and experiences. And I started working with people when I was 20.
That's incredible. So that's a really good lean in for me because I want to start pulling now. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about what it means to be a healer. So you and I have had conversations before as women that are walking, a path that is like fueled with divine energy and an inclination to grow and evolve and change and be transformers of beauty on this planet. And I know over time we've grown and who we thought we were continues to evolve, right? And so I want to like lean in and talk about for people that are walking, everybody's walking a spiritual healing path, whether they're conscious of it or not, but you and I just happen to be doing it more consciously. So what that looks like for like the different iterations of of what it means to embody the different aspects of yourself and bring forth the essence that you are, and not being bound or held into any like stereotype or container. And we're learning this as we're growing. So I don't know, just see what comes for you as we start to weave, because I could be like, la, 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 right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and
Yeah.
it continues to continue to understand
Mm.
what that means. And I do think there's a lot of generational stuff at work. I think every generation kind of has its task.
Mm.
And ours, for those of us who really chose the priestess path, had a charge. You know, we had a charge to come and incarnate the divine feminine onto the planet. And we rejected the patriarchy, and we rejected a lot of the traditional things. And that came at, you know, there was a sacrifice.
Mm.
So yeah. And so I in my original, like when I was younger, I worked in the arts. I went to art school, film school, dance school. I did music. I was, you know, working as a video editor, and also just spending weekends at ashrams. And then I put myself through healing school in my late 20s at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. And when I graduated and decided, like, I'm going to be a healer now, kind of full time, like, this is my thing, this is who I am, that's when like trouble began. Before that, I was kind of free. I was free in a creative archetype. When I decided I was going to do the priestess healer archetype, it was like this, it was like being thrown in jail to a certain extent. And the energy that came in to support that was so strong. It was not something I was in charge of. The energy that came in was the energy of the karmic agreement to be working with the divine feminine energies, to work with women, woman after woman after woman after woman after woman, to help them awaken their connection to the earth, to their womanhood, to their womb, to start healing their sexual trauma, to start healing their relational trauma, to wake up from codependency and love addiction and this whole submissive feminine thing that just, you know, tore women up for thousands of years, right? The mother wound, all this stuff that's like almost common knowledge now.
Yeah.
You know, you're welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
So this is what we've been doing, right?
Yeah.
My life, it was such a drastic change. I was working, you know, in Times Square in the Viacom building at MTV with a bunch of dudes skateboarding, you know what I mean? Like graffiti artists, like these, my life was so much different. And then when I went into the priestess path, it was just like, just goddesses everywhere, just women everywhere, you know, and it was so hard to find the masculine energy, and I didn't want anything to do with it anyway. But I feel like a lot of us went out on a really big ledge.
Oh my God, we did. My mother used to say to me, I don't understand. She's like, all these women, everything is about wombs. Where are the men? And
Yeah,
I
we
was
were
like,
asking the same question.
yeah, we were asking the same questions, but so isolated in
So
this sort of
isolated.
like in this model, this framework, that really, it was very captivating also, right? Because there was so much, there was a lot of majestic qualities, there was a lot of magic, and so it was really enticing and exciting, and also at the same time a bit depleting. um
Yeah, and then that's when I never had any financial struggles before I went in to that path. But when you completely shift out of the masculine, it's going to be hard to have consistency around that.
Yeah.
But again, like there were so many of us all around the world doing this. This was something we volunteered for, an energy that was coming into the earth at that time to anchor in the divine feminine, which got so anchored that the next generation could just be like, gender is stupid. You know what I mean? They could take it for granted so deeply.
Yeah.
That they were like, next, you know? And so that was like heartbreaking a bit when that, you know, as we've also processed a lot of that, but it is the natural evolution, and there will be integration of all of that as well. But it's just, I felt there was as clear as it was that I call it the priestess prison, like entering the priestess, which was also wild and fun and amazing. And I've never felt more like on purpose. And it was literally just an unbelievable time. But when the time came to come back in and have the divine masculine and the masculine energy back in, not just as a concept, because it's not like we didn't know that the whole time, but when it actually started coming in again in a real tangible way, everything's shifted again.
Yeah.
And God came in a more masculine form, and God was like, okay, you're complete with this karma.
Yeah.
Time to move on to a more creative path again.
I love hearing that. And I want to lean into the angle of the sacrifice for a moment, because it's funny, the word impediment is coming in, but it's like we are moving through a wave of where we're moving out of it, but not everybody is, right? So there's still there's all these waves of women. And so like when I lean into speaking to them, obviously they have to walk their karma too, right? But for us, there's like a new configuration that's being born, right? That's a different level of stability. And I think a much higher frequency and bandwidth to experience. It was like the Priestess Path had that level of sacrifice in it, because it was still from a different paradigm that we were trying to infuse the ancient and the new together. And it's like it needed to fine tune so that all of us were living in the full expression of what the true divine feminine is, which is unhindered by stereotypes and even priestess language, like whether, queens, empresses, mothers, women, like it's such a vast expression of who and how she wants to express. It was like trying to put her in a peg. Like you'll behave this way and function this way because you're embodying this archetype, but that means you don't go to the gym anymore. Like it just means that you become a little bit more isolated and shift your entire experience into people that are just into priestessing. Like I wasn't really with regular people anymore. Was that your experience?
Yeah, I didn't want anything to do with like regular life.
Yeah.
I completely rejected it.
Mm-hmm.
I still went to the gym though.
Did you? Oh, good.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, it was not high enough vibration for me.
I mean, still had my things, but I think, it's going to obviously show up differently for everybody a little bit. But I think I felt on a karmic level, a very deep karmic level, that I had to do this.
Yeah.
I had to serve. I had to help these women. And I loved every single one. Love every single one.
Yeah.
Truly, I have so many beautiful women in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extraordinary gift of support and celebration and creativity. And I feel like so many of us are now living the teachings that at least I was helping to unlock, especially with the womb medicine, which is the pure creative spirit.
It is.
And so to live a life in the celebration of creativity is the reward of doing the work. And I also think that there is something to the age and the stage of life. So for me, I'm in my late 40s now.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm moving past this point of like the time of the mother and moving into this early crone stages. And so it is natural to sort of bless all of those that we've raised. I've trained many healers. I've worked with so many, and they're now working with others, and they're in their 30s, and they're in that prime motherhood time. The mother to their clients, the mother to their children. And so they're going to feel that natural inclination to sacrifice for others. But when I started shifting out of that phase, that natural inclination to sacrifice started going out the window. It was literally like, you can take your problems and you can shove it, like literally, like it was such a fast shift. And there was a huge death that came physically, emotionally. I also had to start really showing up for my aging parents a lot more, so that the real life demands of midlife start to come at you, and you start to think, well, how much energy do I have for all of this? What really makes sense for me if I'm going to have to be, in Florida for for the majority of the time? Like how much bandwidth do I have to show up actually?
Don't you feel also too that once the karmic energy started to disperse, that then there was like an elective of choice? Like before, I know that I was choosing, but it was like driving force.
Driving.
Go to this country, go to this country, work with these women, gather this group. And it was like, whoa, like it was like full on. There was no discussion. It wasn't like, no, it was like, get on the plane, book it, go. And so, right, I mean, you and I have moved locations, traveled the world. Like it's just this cusp of her. She's like, Shakti the wind, just driving us everywhere. And then as this started to melt, it was like, oh, what do I really want? What are my soul's deep desires for now? Like this body, this incarnation, what do I want to do now that now I have the freedom to even contemplate it?
Exactly. And that's like at first what's both exciting and incredibly daunting, right?
Yeah.
But I think you just totally nailed it. Like we were in this level of service to something greater than us that was so meaningful and also really exasperating.
Good language right
And
there.
then when
Yeah.
it started coming to a close, almost as mysteriously as it arrived, it's just like, oh my God, it was like, yeah, breaking out of prison. Um,
Yeah.
and And then I think it's exciting because, yeah, exactly. What do you want? What do we
Yeah.
want now? And then all of this wisdom that we've gained, this embodiment of womanhood,
Mm.
of maturation, of wisdom, of compassion and creativity. Now I find that my peers and I were gathering and creating some of the most epic stuff that like I've ever experienced. And it's so joyful. And these are
Mm.
performances, collaboration, like creative collaborations, essentially, really dropping into my community more. And now all of a sudden I have tons of men in my life, it's
Amazing.
great. I'm like, oh, look, they're
Yeah.
back. What are you creating?
I love that. Yeah. When you're speaking, I just feel this exalted energy. And
It's the graduation,
it is.
or
Yeah.
it's not the abandonment of the post, it is the promotion.
Yeah.
And in the
And
old days,
it can seem the opposite. Like I know for me, it was like, wait, I I was so connected to living so purposely, and the charge was so big when it wasn't as high anymore. I felt like something was wrong. Like I had to really go through a dismantling of like, am I being fired? Like what's going on? Right?
totally. And then seeing literally not just like a few new people in the sphere, but like an entire generation
Yeah.
of women, saying all the things and doing all the things that we basically pioneered, with some,
Yes.
you know,
Yep.
but and having the things that were once just like the most revolutionary things now kind of old news and being marketed and
Yeah.
splattered all over social media like the next
It's
brand of toilet paper.
it's so true. Like it used to be like challenging to even say some of the language that we say on mainstream, but now it's much more visible.
Yeah, and so we succeeded, as
We
weird as it
did.
is, or
Yeah.
as sort of like, hey, because I was used to being the like little jewel that was found down the rabbit hole, right? And
Yeah.
now, it's just not like that anymore. But that was the point. That's what we came to start getting the principles of the feminine back into our culture. And it's on.
It is on. It is on.
So now we get to enjoy it. That's
Yeah.
sort of, and it's just new. It's just a switch to learn how to enjoy it and not be like, oh, we got to struggle to bring this thing because our culture is so bad and this and that. Like, but to just be living the principles.
Mm. Amen. Yeah, I love that. I feel this I'm starting to feel the gifts of the inheritance, whereas they were starting to feel like really heavy and burdensome, like to have to like get the message out now, like now, now. And now it's like, oh, just like now it's an entirely new bandwidth of consciousness that feels like how you heal is through the expression of your love, not just by the things that you are, anchoring the places you're going, but you're a healer in the way that you sing. You transmit healing in the way that you do your art. Like it is just a consistent emanation and not a confinement as to like, you have to show up and do this thing. Now it's like healing services. You become the river. And before I feel like it was an ocean, but it was like conceptually really, really, it was a prison, like for sure.
A purposeful prison.
A purposeful prison. And you don't know you're in it when you're in it because it can feel
Oh, I knew.
so big. I was like flying high, pretty ungrounded a lot of the time, if I'm being really honest, but just like so big and so expansive. And yet my needs weren't fully being met.
Yeah, I think that's the
Right.
distinction. I also had those times of just like, I'm going to take off. I'm going to drive west for like a year,
Yeah.
and just go from spot to spot, soul retrieve, meet with
Yeah.
women,
Completely.
indigenous people, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all the things that were so soul nourishing, right? Like
They were.
you don't leave all your belongings behind and everything you built to follow some sort of soul call unless like it's really going to meet something important, right? You're not going to do
Yes.
that just because, especially if I'm like a naturally, I like my home space. I'm
Yeah,
not like
for
one of those people
sure.
that wants to live out of a van, right? There are those people, but I wasn't one of those people. So to
I
do
wasn't
that,
either.
right? So to do that meant that there was something calling us that was so powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, you left everything else in the dust.
Yeah. We did. We left our homes, like to our
Family.
mother's generation, it was a big deal. It was like, okay, I mean, gave up homes, sold everything we owned, like just, okay, we're going on the road. Like this is the new way.
My mom is an adventurer, so she was like, "We have fun." My
Oh,
dad
that's
was, I can't believe this is happening. He's still just like when he found out that I was shifting out of healing is like my full-time thing. I swear,
yeah.
the tears of joy.
Oh my God.
So every time I mention healing, the eye roll.
You know what
Because of the sacrifice, because I gave up everything. Because before that, I owned an apartment in Manhattan, was the top of my game as an editor at MTV. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I left it all to go like sleep in my car in the Southwest. You know what I mean? And he's like, I can't believe this happened.
And
Not
I
my daughter.
totally understand that, like from the father perspective, like who's a guardian, who's a protector, like, and their generation with different rules and scripts, like,
Well, who paid for my education also.
got it. Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't cheap.
Yeah. It's big. Much more compassion for those that are not walking it in the same way we are, because I know obviously being a mom now, like, it's like, whoa, even when you think you're somewhat liberal, it's like, no, it's crazy to see what folks do. Scary.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. Oh my God. There was something that was coming in that was so beautiful, but I feel like I might have just lost it. Let's see if it comes back. Oh, it was about, including in the fullness of us, like how, we went into that like full zone, that was very central focused. And now when you were talking, it's like it opens up and now you get to be all the different versions of Cece uninhibited. Like if now you can be the singer, you can be the writer, you can be this, like you can do it all and not cut any part of yourself out.
That is what started to happen.
Yeah.
And at first, to unlock that permission, because I had to give myself so much permission that I wasn't,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
death process that happened. Like I did almost physically die. My entire like I had, mystery school that I had built stopped working. People just stopped signing up. So I'm like losing my income, I had to go and live at my mom's for almost 2 years
Same.
during the pandemic, right? Which was like, ha, ha, wow.
Mhm.
And B, is a different kind of stripping.
Yeah.
To be stripped of your priestessness after you have been stripped of
Yes.
everything to become the
Love
priestess.
that.
I was like, all right, but that death allowed the rebirth, which was whatever, which is like this,
Still
whatever.
happening.
I'm just a divine freelancer. I'm just going to show up
Ah,
with everything I have inside, every skill, every love, and
I need
serve.
to I need to write down the word freelancer right now because when you just said it, it's a word that I never use in relationship to me, and it's such a beautiful word.
Oh, I love freelancer. I was a freelance video editor
It's
for all those years
it's like a
before
free
becoming.
dancer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lancer. What does Lancer mean?
I don't
Free
know.
is
We got
good.
to look that up.
What's
Yeah.
Lancer mean?
I'm going to look it up. Hold on,
Okay.
guys. Let's see. Lancer meaning.
I love working project to project. I really enjoy that. And that's what a freelancer gets to do.
A lancer is a soldier of cavalry. Hold on. And then hold on. Let me just see what happens when I put in freelancer because I'm not really feeling that breakdown.
Well, no, but think about it. The difference of just being a lancer, but then a freelancer.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's well stated. Working for different companies at different times rather than being permanently employed by one company, earning one's living as a freelance.
Oh, I
All
just
right.
love it. I just love the sound of that. It just sounds so good.
It does. It does. Oh my God. Freedom. Yes. Yes to
And just
freedom.
getting to explore different projects, different companies, different people, different flavors of creativity. I live for that. And I think when I was in the priestess zone, like I felt the archetype is so strong.
Oh,
Like archetypes are real.
they are real.
It was so strong that I really didn't feel like I could deviate from it. I
Yeah.
really didn't.
Yeah. I
I felt
understand.
committed. I felt like it was everything. I ate, slept, and breathed it. And I couldn't get out, but I also was not happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was happy about it. You know,
Yeah.
like there was no place else to be. But when that started opening, like you said, it was just like, wow, the permission to get to be so much more. Because I can jump into priestess mode or healer mode
Yeah.
or coach mode really fast. It's all in there. It's
Yes.
happening much more fluidly now. It's happening like with just as it shows up.
Mhm.
I'm not writing newsletters anymore. I'm not organizing courses. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm literally just letting it happen in my regular life. Because the other part that happened that we've talked about a lot is the marketing nightmare
Oh,
that healing and priestessing became with email lists and funnels and online courses and everybody in the six-figure this and the blah, 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 because the reality of a healer needing to make money is
is
like,
real.
it's real. We are living in capitalist USA. There are a lot of single moms out there. It's all that, but then you get lost in this jail also of like the internet.
You do. And we
And
become
like,
like priestesses on the computer.
it's just, I swear, it wasn't that long ago I was doing this, but I literally look back like, what was that?
Yeah. I'm still like weaving into the new iteration of how it wants to form, as I
Yeah.
know you are too, right? It's like, oh, how does this want to emerge? And I don't want to control it. I don't want, like, I want to be self-governed, but like divinely governed, but in a much more freelancy type of experience. But even the idea of like the travel and all that was, at least I find for me, it's like building community all over the world was really beautiful, right? Building bridges and showing up in these ways. But at the same time, building and creating money, it really does. Being grounded and growing community, like staying in one place, you can actually nurture the environment in a much different way than if you're constantly like in movement and going and growing. So I find also too, just having roots, like more substantiated roots, it cultivates a different type of energy and it creates something that feels a little bit more sustainable. That's not to say that we can't be free birds, but just like it's different than me having 3 suitcases and a storage unit.
Yeah, totally.
Right? It's a different thing.
It's a different thing. Yeah. I've been in my community in the Hudson Valley, New York now for 5 years.
Yeah.
Traveled a lot since moving here, but the roots now that are here, it's like unbelievable feeling. I hadn't been anywhere longer than 3 years, really, ever. So to be somewhere 5 years and see the benefits of that, it's been extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to go to France and study, do a painting residency. And I'm still,
Awesome.
going to go to Ireland, do a music course. And I'm still, I'm going to
Yeah.
do all those things. But knowing there's like the home and the community, and it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bringing all the worlds together.
Yeah. And there's a lot of us, right? So there's a lot of people who've been, building these principles who are now ready to live them. And that's what I found post-pandemic, is that like the embodiment of community, of being there for each other, of love, of creativity, of collaboration, of sisterhood, like all of that got raised another octave. And I have, found like the weaving of people and ideas and the understanding that when we receive ideas, we're receiving them on a collective level. Now we're not really receiving them on an individual level. So we get to co-create in new ways. And we just did this incredible immersive ritual theater, like ceremonial theater, in these enormous caves in Rosendale. And this collective called the Circle Creative Collective, and one of the members, Jenny Wonderling, she really visioned this idea of like an ancestor ceremony through the caves. And I mean, the way the collective came together to make this happen, we had almost 100 people participating as artists and as behind the scenes technical people. And then we had the community, we had 4 experiences or shows or whatever you want to call it. And they were sold out, 100 people per show. The whole community showed up to freeze their butts off in this enormous
Oh my God,
cave.
I wish I knew.
I mean, I blasted it a lot.
I know.
But, but, moving through the outdoors into the cave, doing a whole ceremony for their ancestors, altars, beautiful theater, music, dance. Like, I have never been a part of anything so sacred.
All right.
So like high art, and one of my original songs was showcased in this performance as the final song. And I had written this song 7 years ago, and it came through in an instant. And I was like, wow, this song is different from all my other songs. And then when Jenny heard the song, she knew it was supposed to be in the show. And I knew it was supposed to be in the show. Yeah. And then singing it there 4 times, I got to sing it, in this configuration, definitely like the highlight of my life. But to know that Creator is working on this larger level, that 7 years ago, I was given the song for this moment. And like, here we are, everything weaving together, coagulating together in this most special way. And it was chaotic to get there. We put it together in less than 6 weeks. And like, it was, I mean, I sat there in the dress rehearsal, like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. We pulled it off like perfectly, like to say that there is a larger energy that is working through us and moving us, and the community who came to see it. Like my faith in the creative spirit, like, I wouldn't say restored because it was never lost, but it was,
it was reignited.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And we know that those moments, they don't necessarily happen every day.
They don't. And when they do, they are life-changing. They really invigorate the spirit again. And it's like, okay, I can keep going. Let's do the next thing.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me know, I was really on the right track. And this divine freelancing thing was like paying off.
Yeah, it sounds really, really incredible and so honoring. It's like finally everything is getting put into place in a different way that nourishes
and dreams,
the bones.
like so many of us, I remember in my 20s, I had dreams of being in that kind of theater, because like a lot of spiritual people, when I graduated from art school and music and dance school or whatever, like and healing school. The world didn't have that vibration in its theater, in its advertising, in its, even in the art world. Like, I rejected all of it because there wasn't really a place for me. But to know that 20 years, 30 years later of dreaming these dreams and all these other people dreaming these dreams and building up the field and building up the creativity and the relationships and the strength and somehow working out the finances and trusting, so that we could come together now and do this for a population that's ready. Like, I really love this wheel we're turning on.
Me too. Me too.
Fascinating.
I love hearing when you're expressing all this full-bodied integration, like through life, like it's really, really has arrived in your senses, in the body, like where it's so much more accessible. I want to say it's accessible for everybody. And it's funny, I don't know that I want to use the word bridgy, but it's like, it feels less ethereal, even though it, of course, it is composed of those elements. It just feels like the magic is here now, right? Like really, like it's really for us, like a piano to just like weave and play. Whereas before it felt like it was more pulling and anchoring. And now it feels like it's moving out this way, right? It's coming out through the heart, like you're saying, like the heart song, and like being in this vibrational frequency with others. It felt like before there wasn't as many, like there was tons of us, but yet wasn't where I lived. Like I had to travel to go to it, or go to sacred places, or like go to places, go to the ashram. But now it's like where regular people live, right? It's like in the world. We brought it in
Yeah.
the world.
And there's so many of us now who are entering our second half of life, right?
Yeah.
Who've been in this for our whole lives.
Yeah.
We're walking into our elderhood with all of this embodied.
Yeah.
I think this is the normal and natural path. And certainly when I would go and do ceremony with my Indigenous friends around the world, was already very integrated. And, we're just catching up and we're reclaiming what had been lost or colonized out of us, even as ancestors of the colonizers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or ancestors, ancestors, what are we? Descendants?
Descendants.
Ancestors.
Freelancing dance sisters. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, reclaiming all of that, which I wrote so many articles about in the early 2000s. But here we are with that integration and that embodiment, and so many of us looking around to our, all around us and seeing our sisters and our brothers coming up, and our non-binary folk saying, hey, we're here, like getting a solid place for them, and coming into this circle as an integrated community. Like that's right. That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So if you had any, I don't know, I don't want to say advice, but the reason I like to talk about this with you is because I don't hear a lot. I mean, obviously in my clients, but I don't hear a lot of women talking about the disintegration, like that deep death that happens moving out of that archetype, because really I think it is our generation, right? We're in our late 40s. We're really on the precipice of moving into, as you said, the eldership, and this much more expansive, I want to say all-encompassing mother role, even though it is leaving the mother, it becomes the grandmother, right? That holds things differently, holds more in a different way. Hold on, where was I going with that? So I think it's important, as we've talked about, to allow the death, to really, really allow the inheritance of the death, which is a natural life cycle for us, right? And to just I wanted to speak into this because so much of my community are spiritual walkers and priestesses and women who are still very much being moved by the force, and their whirlwind will come, if it hasn't already, or if they are fighting that, because we know what that can look like. I was like, I'm going to hold on to this for as long as I can because it's the only thing I know now, and allowing the continuous death to happen. Yeah, it just feels really humbling and loving to allow and express to women that they can let go. You'll still have your power and your wisdom and your magic. But you can like dissolve when it's time for that to dissolve and embody and integrate without having to stand in it and fight for it. Like you become it. It swallows you.
It's going to dissolve you, but I would say to just know there is a rebirth, there is another side. It is natural, and to honor the women who've put in their time in this way. And I actually have a fair number of friends and clients who are in the same stage.
Great.
Going through it, you know, and which is what helped me reconcile what was happening to myself.
Yeah.
And looking around and seeing the younger generation picking it up. And I think it's natural to feel when you're older and your life's work has been both successfully passed on, but also you feel a little bit eclipsed.
Yeah.
And, you know, dealing with those feelings.
I love hearing you talk about that because I'm not in that space right now, but I feel it. I hear you. I know, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I was.
Yeah.
I was. And I know several other women who also felt that way, like just reconciling it and not understanding that, okay, what's happening is we are being fired so that we can be rehired at the next octave, and it's actually better. But you know, takes a minute. And I think like your 40s, everybody always says like, oh, wait till you get to your 40s, it's the best time of your life. Like, I don't know. I feel like 40s are such a transition decade.
I think so too.
You're really setting yourself up for the second half of your life. You're ending the first half of your life and setting yourself up for the second half. There's a lot of, I feel like in 40 to 45, so women have, I mean, I had a burst of sensuality and sexuality that was out of control. Like I probably, you know, and I saw a lot of other women going through this. And of course, you know, you hear about it, but it was like, must've been like being a teenage boy or something, you know what I mean? Like it was just so overwhelming, right? And then in that, wanting to make sure I achieved everything that I hadn't gotten to achieve, like fighting to have the family, fighting to have the successful career, fighting to have like everything I thought I should have, you know?
Yeah.
And then at 45-ish, you just sort of get into this acceptance game where you're like, well,
yeah.
You just don't get to do it all. Sometimes you live in disappointment, just being with disappointment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
The
And
surrender.
it's like mothers dying their creations are dying, right? Like all the dreams that we had dreamed up in our bodies, and like it's big. It's psychologically, spiritually, it is like it's a really big transition. Right. And then plus there is the starting to transition into the menopause. There is the hormonal shift. There's a lot that is changing inside of the body.
So much. That hormonal shift is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So intense. And men go through their version also.
Yes.
You know, in this midlife crisis everybody talks about is really the death of your old life.
Absolutely.
Death of your youth, the stepping into your second half. You're watching your parents get elderly. They're going to be dying. They're having to like, you know, you're shifting them so that you're helping them walk home to God.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to get there. Like once you see your parents starting to die, you're like, oh, it happens.
Yeah. You and I are both like working through in that right now with our parents, that dance. We're freelancing with our parents. And it continues to bring reaffirm commitment for me, like around how we're watching them elder, how in this society, like how things go down, and like what's possible, what do we want to create, like really looking at all these pieces and assimilating like how do we want to contribute in with the elders, and how do we want to contribute for the next generation to set up something that may be potentially more sustainable for them? Like,
I'm actually more thinking about myself, like,
great.
like my parents, yes, thinking about my parents and then thinking about, well, how am I going to do this?
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
I
Because
know.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm out of I'm the next gen. Well, you have a child, so
Yeah.
I don't. So that's the difference.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're looking at nobody, like I don't have a daughter to do what I'm doing for my
Yeah.
mom, you know, I
Yes.
don't have
Yeah.
that. So what I do have is an incredibly strong community of sisters.
Yeah.
So that is something that, you know, a lot of the older generation doesn't have. They don't have the
They
strength
don't.
of the friendships the way that we do. So, you know, having the conversations with all the daughters right now and some sons about, well, especially because a lot of us don't have children.
Yeah.
You know, some of us do,
Yeah.
but a lot of us don't.
Agreed. Generally, so many things have changed.
So many things. And then I also have been meeting a lot of guys recently who are similar. They've been on a spiritual quest. They don't have kids, they aren't married, or maybe they had a kid when they were 21, but then you know what I mean? And like we're in a deep inquiry for the majority of their life, you know,
Yeah.
dealing with
Yeah.
karma. Like those guys are kind of coming out of the woodwork now. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of us single people who are going to create something entirely different
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
for
It is.
our aging process. And I don't have any romantic notions about the aging process
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you. I agree. It's much more grounded now. Like, oh, yeah. And yeah, so much more compassion and so much more understanding of like what happens to the body. And it doesn't have to be our story, right? We're looking at like what has been in the inheritance of a generation who laid the groundwork for us. And now what do we want to create, and how do we want to vision? How do we want to vision with the feet on the ground? Like not like new agey distortions, but like really not romanticizing and being really present with what actually is. There is a
yeah,
decomposition, like for real. No matter how expanded your consciousness is, there is a body.
yeah. And it's
Yeah,
challenging. It is
it is.
challenging to be older.
It
I mean,
is.
it really is. There's the payoff for your life is death. I'm sorry. It
Yeah,
just is.
I
Like,
agree. I couldn't
not
agree
old
more.
age. It is being released from the body. Um, I know I'm very precious about my body. Like I've fallen in love with her so deeply. And you know, like I know I'm gonna grieve a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grieve a lot. And we are, I mean, science and everybody healing, it's creating many more options for us in our bodies these days than we had before, right?
Yes.
But still like to say goodbye to the body that you had. I know I'm already
Mm,
upset about it.
I know. And I feel such relief because I love death. I just the whole process of life and death is really beautiful for me.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is like I love the relief from the body, what that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome.
It is.
I
We're doing
personally,
it, Cease. We're
I know
doing
it's gonna be fine when that moment happens, because
Yeah.
yes, that is the graduation, that is the relief. And I think that my enthusiasm for this particular lifetime only grows stronger as I become more conscious, as I bring more of my spirit energy in this body, as I understand what it means to be on earth with all of its ups and downs and what we get to experience here because of our physicality and because of linear time and because of human relationship. You know, it's just so special. And I think this particular lifetime for me is incredibly meaningful. And I know me. I will be ready and I will be mourning for my own life.
Hmm, that's beautiful. Eloquently spoken. Yeah. Yeah. So much ahead.
So much.
So much ahead. And in order to really, really be open to receive what is ahead, is to keep allowing the consistent deaths of who we thought we were and to keep emerging into more and more
Yep.
succulence and connection and life. Ah, it's big. It's big. So tell me if anybody wants to work with you and like look at your delicious art and get on board with being in connection with you in some way, how do you do that? How do you want to inform people?
Well, at the moment, I'm somewhat transitioning, but I have two sites. One of them is cctreadwayarts.com, and one of them is lightschoolarts.com.
Okay.
So CC Treadway Arts, and I have a simple site up now. It's getting bigger as I'm working on it in the background. Um, that's where all the art and music and performance is located. And then there'll be a little button that clicks to Light School Arts, which also already
Great.
exists. And that's where you find where I do mentoring and coaching, and where I used to teach a lot of classes. There's some free stuff there, and lots of blogs and lots of things like that.
Awesome.
I did have a mystery school for 20 years. So sort of figuring out how to honor that and also let
Mm,
it let
yeah.
it be where it is.
Yeah.
But I work with a small group of people, a handful of people, one-on-one, to do that kind of deep transformative coaching, creating, just helping you unlock your deepest, most passionate, spiritual,
Mm,
juicy, creative
yeah.
life thing, healing, whatever. I mean, at this point, it's just all of it. It's just,
Yeah.
if you feel that resonance with me and feel that yes in your body and in your spirit to that, then
Mhm.
super.
Super. I love that. Well, we'll have that all linked down below.
And I want
What
to also just plug you, Jackie, because you are also doing incredible work. And I'm curious where your most passionate focus is right now,
mm,
clients.
thank you for saying that. I would say everything is in flux right now. And the thing that is coming in that feels like so refreshing and opening is actually this podcast.
Mm.
So it's like opening up a doorway where more of me can bring uh, like a full spectrum voice. Voice feels like so important and powerful right now.
Mm.
And to really anchor my own voice in the world and to bring the voices of others, so that we can, as a medium of co-creation too, like just to bring brilliance together and bring hearts together. And so that's been something that's really exciting. It's just emerging. So I'm like, learning how my instrument wants to be moved through it.
Mm.
And so there's something beautiful here that has been coming through for a long time. And as far as the mentoring work with women, there's something really profound that's coming through around women and women and mothers specifically. Mothers is a really big theme for me, and
Mm.
connecting people back into the source of the divine mother, like that really sacred point where things start to unfurl naturally, and it changes all of the decisions we make. It changes everything that we think about the world, because the self is just starts to peak and come through in a way that feels like a miracle.
Mm.
And so I just really feel called to continue to deepen and open that with women. And I do have a very strong desire, a fulfillment that's coming through around gathering with mothers and fathers. And I say that as in not necessarily ones that are birth children, but as you talk about, like, as you've mentioned with you, like leading the groundwork and laying something down for what's to come. I know that I'm one of the mothers of that. So really coming into creating a global template where
Mm.
we are really ushering in more mentorship and support for the generations that are here right now. And yeah, opening up more knowledge and wisdom, because we can see that the extremes of dark and light on the planet are very intensified right now. So like just really honing in to opening up the sacred, and opening up then the sacred in parents. So they're opening up and holding that sacredness for their children, to open up these envelopes of light infrastructures so that we can really create this. My voice is changing, so I'll leave it there. Really opening up a new creation.
Wow. Jackie, that is very, very powerful.
Thank
Really,
you.
really felt that.
I'm really like still pulling through the words, but my heart is so committed, and so committed to our daughters and our sons, like, this preserving the sacred and coming through and like really, really uplifting them into true like honesty and discernment and something, we have a rise with the internet. So there's like a lot, it's a lot for them. It's a lot for us. So it's a lot for them. And so, yeah, I think that there's a need for more medicine carriers holding so that our medicine youth can come in and have an infrastructure, which is something I didn't have really, right? You were really lucky in that way. I'm so excited for your mom that she was holding it down in that way. But like being able to know how to tend the inner fire, to know the truth, like, right, without the illusion of like, you're a spiritual being. So I want like to really set models into place and have places for parents and moms to start to really embody this and pass the teachings on to these generations so they can stand in like what I call the elegance of warriorship, to really preserve what is sacred in them in the middle of like AI and like an onslaught of otherness, to really return to the source and hold in the middle of this explosion of creative everything.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that are on my heart.
Oh my, I mean, can I get a witness? Like,
these are some of the things I'm working on and dreaming in when I'm.
that was incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Listening,
for opening it for me to share that, because
yeah.
it's even that I'm trying to pull it through the podcast, right? And be like, how do I express this, like this deeper calling? It's like protection and nurture at the same time, but like, it's so, and it's fierce. And like, we have to center, we have to be able to balance our elements. We have to create this sense of deep, stable connection in a way that it's always been here, but now it's like, if you cannot transmit and hold and stand in the vibration of who you are, you will be washed. Like it'll like literally you'll be wiped. So to inhabit this body and to be able to serve the God within and stand in the bounty that is here for us. We already know that there's a lot that's happening, but yeah, I just want to be able to be a beacon for that next level of infrastructure, for that next level of life to come through in integrity, untouched, preserved, cared for, and nurtured, so that they can do what they have to do. So yeah. Thank you. So
bones, and that like you couldn't be more prepared for that. And as you were talking, I was just seeing the people coming together for that, the couples coming together to understand that it actually does take a strong individual, a strong unit of like couplehood.
Yes.
To then come together in a community to say, okay, how are we anchoring in these truths and really nurturing our society? In a way that was obviously completely blasted out and forgotten over the generations. And we just got to bring that back in, but in this new, very integrated way with our sacredness intact. And right. Wow.
Yeah. And like,
what a deep mission.
And like rites of passage, like really, really bringing in fundamental, like we are aware, you and I are aware, we're talking here today about our cycles, our seasons, and how you and I are moving into this whole new terrain. It's like all of these humans are moving through this terrain, but they do not have like a birthday party's great. But what about the acknowledgement of like these deep psychospiritual processes that are going to transform and support you spiritual beings coming into like real righthood of adulthood, like real assertive adulting.
Yes.
Like, oh, so many things I could
You
just
make it sound so good. That's
thank you.
the kind of adulting I'm on board with, that kind of
Oh my
adulting.
God, like super spiritually grounded, this like really divine warriorship. Like it's even like in anchoring, I mean, obviously there were so many spectrums of the priestess aspects that we embody over time, right? But like just asserting will, like, and if we don't assert our will and stand in the center point, I mean, it is like with the internet and with the waves and globalization, like there is so much. There is so much. I just want to see. Hold on. Wow. Thanks, guys. I just want to see our grandchildren receive their inheritance and be one with the land.
Mm.
Like for that relationship to be so loving and supported. So yeah, just big work. It feels like work that's so much bigger than me, and it requires me with a bandwidth of incredible people on the ground, and I'm still listening to how that wants to happen. But it starts with simple things that we have context for: hormones, menstruation, elements, like just grounded, practical, spiritual wisdom that is like, here is how you come back to center. Here is how you balance. Here is how you know who you are. Like, you are made of this, like the truth, instead of like, I'm not my body, like really grounded principles. So anyway, I'm taking all that priestess like woo and dropping it into the body. Like, how are we going to proceed forward? You bleed. You need to know what that means. You need to be prepared to know how to function. You need to know about your sexuality. You need to know your body's sacred, so you don't give it away to everybody. Like, you need to know these things that will help you to be successful in your life. And so I want to just impart that.
Wow. And so it is.
And so it is. So we're doing it, Cease.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah. I love you. I'm so glad that you came on today. Thank you for honestly being somebody who's walking it. I know it's so important because I only have a few elders who are walking, a spiritual path that is in front of me, like even a feminine spiritual path, right? Women, like elders that are working with wombs and like all of that. They're going to look to us. They already are, but it's so important. So imagine this generation of us, they're going to have so many more hands to reach towards than I think that our generation did.
I mean, absolutely.
It's gorgeous. And I love watching you. You've been in this, I believe you've been in this a little bit longer than me. And your ability to stay true has been something I've always acknowledged about you. And there has been a certain humility that you carry that I respect very much and I see in you. And I just wanted to point it out because it is one of the things I admire about you. And yeah, and you're always very honest about the grit, like, and I am too. Like, it is not easy. It is not just like, woo woo, yay, I'm spirited and flying. It is fucking really, really challenging. It is the path of the great mystery, and it is a consistent rebirthing. And so thank you for being one of the sisters and mothers of this time that are, creating new configurations and just walking it, doing what you do.
Thank you so much, honey. I love you so much.
I love you too.
All that about you. And it's so wonderful to share this mystery with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to put all of your information below. Everybody get on board, peep out Cece's beautiful work, and we'll meet soon. And I love you. And to everybody listening, I hope that this touched you in some way and gives you strength or gives you a laugh, whatever. Gives you something
to look forward to.
Exactly. So, all right, we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time.